This is The Entrepreneur Way with Neil Ball. Unlocking the secrets of successful entrepreneurs 7 days a week. Subscribe to our podcast and follow us on Twitter at Neil D. Ball. Napoleon Hill said the power of the mastermind is the driving force. To discover how you can unlock the potential in your business using the power of a mastermind, go to mastermindunlimited.com. And now, here is your host, Neil Ball.
Hello everybody, Neil Ball here. Thank you so much for joining me today on The Entrepreneur Way. The Entrepreneur Way is about the entrepreneurial journey, the mindset, the commitment, the sacrifice, failures and successes. I'm so excited to bring you our special guest today, Brian Basilico. Albert Einstein said, to raise new questions, new possibilities, to regard old problems with a new angle requires creative imagination. Because of that, the Entrepreneur Way asks the questions so we all get the insight, the inspiration, and the ideas to apply in our businesses. Brian, welcome to the show. Are you ready to share your version of the Entrepreneur Way with us?
Absolutely, Neil. Thanks for having me, man.
Thank you for coming. Brian Basilico is an internationally recognized best-selling author of It's Not About You, It's About the Bacon, Relationship Marketing in a Social Media World. And he is a sought-after speaker, coach, and adjunct professor. He brings over 35 years of marketing experience to his award-winning internet marketing company, B2B Interactive Marketing, Inc. Brian is also a syndicated podcaster, blogger, and a sought-after guest expert featured in Entrepreneur and Inc. magazine, and has written articles and podcast shows. Brian, can you give me some insight into your business and personal life to allow the listeners to get to know more about you and who you are, please?
Well, sure. Let me start with a little bit of background of where I came from. I think it's probably the best way to kind of introduce what I do. I started out at 18 as an entrepreneur and started a recording studio in my father's basement, did that for a number of years, then moved on. I got a degree in electronics and started working at AT&T in their video production department, where I learned how to do video production, shooting, editing, producing, all that kind of stuff. Great experience, excellent learning experience. Moved on and built a commercial recording studio where we did radio commercials, audio for TV, a whole bunch of different, things like cassettes for Avon ladies. Remember cassettes?
Yeah, I do.
Years ago. And ended up selling that company to a multimedia production company where I learned to program. I did CD-ROMs and websites and flash animations, all that kind of stuff. Still doing some audio and video and things like that in there. Ended up moving on to Arthur Andersen in their training division and worked with them for a number of years. And then, of course, the whole Enron thing happened, so I had to find another job and moved on to an ad agency where I developed online marketing such as Google Ads and all that kind of stuff. And then started, really getting deeper and deeper into the internet marketing side, and eventually left that and started this business 15 years ago. And when I first started it, I was actually building business card CDs. And as we all know, just like audio cassettes, CDs have kind of gone to the wayside. Now everything's online. So I've had to evolve my business over the years. And now I focus on pure internet marketing, social media, websites, Google, all that kind of stuff, anything online. And that's kind of the journey that got me to where I'm at today.
Right. Excellent. And what is it you enjoy most about what you do right now?
Well, what I really enjoy, the most enjoyable thing is watching other people make more money. That to me is the most enjoyable thing. So included in that is, I do a lot of teaching and training, and that to me is what I really enjoy. I love teaching people how to do stuff. Because
you've obviously had a lot of experience doing lots of different things there. So what is it that drives you?
Well, what drives me is just, here's the thing, is I consider myself a lifelong learner. And so I love learning new things. And one of the things I say to my clients and when I give speeches and things like that is I spend the majority of my day learning things so I can teach other people how to do it.
Yeah.
So that's what drives me, is just staying on top of things. Because if you don't continue to learn, you start to become obsolete. And once you become obsolete, man, it's hard to catch up again. So it's especially in this ever-changing world. I mean, things are changing daily. You know, you log into Facebook and it's different, and LinkedIn is different, and, you know, you've got Blabs and podcasts and Periscopes and all this other stuff. So, you know, I love learning all this stuff, using it, and then teaching other people how to do it.
Yeah, it's good. It's good that you do that. So when you're not doing all this stuff and you're not learning this and doing what you're doing in your business, how do you relax when you know, at home or with your family or whatever you do? What is it you get up to?
Well, my favorite thing is to go golfing. I call them 4-hour nature meetings, FORE. Oh, yeah. And I get to go out and just spend 4 hours, hit this little white ball into a cup, and it just really kind of gets me in my Zen area where I, you know, get a chance to kind of mentally, you know, chillax for a little while. That's my favorite thing. And I play music. You know, I'm a guitar player and singer, so, you know, I do that both professionally and at church and stuff like that. So that's fun too. Those are the things that I really like to do.
Yeah, it's good stuff. So do you have any entrepreneurial role models, Brian?
Yeah, there's tons. Here's the thing about entrepreneurial role models is there's different ones for different aspects. You know, there's certain people that are really great at online marketing. There's certain people that are really good at building a business. And I would call it, you know, more than role models, is I like to follow a lot of trending people. So, you know, people like Joel Comm, Matt Basak, Lee Collins, Russell Brunson, Warren Whitlock, a lot of these people I've had on my own podcast, and then there's Ken MacArthur and David Perdue. I mean, these are people that are, you know, at the forefront of the internet marketing stuff. So I love to connect and follow them.
Yeah, I've heard of a few of those, but not all of them. So I'll have to check some of those out. But I think what I'd like to do now is I'd like to move to the time before you were an entrepreneur. Now, you said you started at 18, so I'm not quite sure where we go with that. You don't sound like somebody who was frustrated in a job and you'd all of a sudden wanted to become an entrepreneur. So anyway, we'll see where we go with this. So what difficulties did you have to overcome when you started your business at first, or you started on the journey of becoming an entrepreneur?
Well, I call myself a serial entrepreneur because I did it, and then I worked for a company, and I did it, and I worked for a company. And, you know, I found out that I didn't play well in the sandbox, you know, in the corporate sandbox. It just wasn't my place to be. So the major difficulty, like anything else, is really running a business. I mean, it's one of the things that I say is if you can't read a balance sheet or a P&L statement, that you really are running a hobby, because you need to understand, you know, where your profit comes from. So one of the biggest challenges, you know, there are different challenges at different stages. I mean, starting a business at 18 was finding customers. You know, starting a commercial recording studio and having 5 employees was really just managing the size of the organization. I mean, we did $500,000 a year at the time with 5 employees. And I spent more time dialing for dollars and pushing paper than I did doing what I really loved. And so that was something I had to learn is, you know, I had to find my passion and get back into what it is that I love to do. And that's one of the reasons why I love doing podcasting, is because it brings me back to my audio roots. Yeah. So that's the biggest, you know, the biggest challenge is it changes over time, but you know, it's still the same challenges. It's like, where do you find new customers? How do you make them successful? You know, how do you balance, you know, spending too much time in the business with the right amount of time? Where do you, you know, how do you make sure that you're getting profits and that kind of stuff? So
it's very challenging. I think the numbers is always important, isn't it? I do agree with you on that. But I think one of the difficulties of being an entrepreneur is you've got to learn so many different things. You're expected to know everything about everything. You know, the law, you're supposed to know about your financials, about marketing, everything. And I think that's the real challenge, isn't it? Trying to find the right mix of everything so that you get a successful business.
Absolutely. And the other thing that you have to also learn how to do is learn your strengths and learn your weaknesses, and then hire to your weaknesses, you know, whether it's freelancers or, you know, third parties. I mean, I do my own books, but I still have an accountant who takes care of all my taxes. I'm not going to sit down and do that. You know, it's, you know, I hire people. I'm not a great sales copywriter, so I hire people to do that. You know, it's just, you got to know where your strengths are, where your weaknesses are, and fill in those gaps.
Yeah, absolutely. So did you have any doubts that delayed you starting any of these businesses?
Not at all. I didn't have any doubts. I mean, once I made my mind up, I just hit the ground running and ran with it. Because, I've done it before. I mean, that's the beauty of starting at 18 is, I learned how to market back then. When I was back in those days, I mean, we didn't have computers like we do now. Mm-hmm. I did have like an Atari 400, and I did print newsletters. I would actually print it out and then cut it up with scissors and do some graphics and paste it onto a paper and then take it to a printer and print it and send it out. Mm-hmm. Those principles are no different today with email newsletters or blogs or podcasts or websites or any of those things. So, it's really just after I learned it at 18, I really didn't have any hesitations at all.
Okay, so with no hesitation, you must have made some mistakes along the way. So what mistakes did you make that slowed your journey, where you went off in the wrong direction or something like that, made some bad decisions? Is there anything that comes to mind?
Oh, yeah. We could do a whole podcast on that. Seriously. I mean,
what comes to mind? Some of the biggest ones maybe, or the most poignant ones?
The biggest, mistake I made, or the biggest challenge I had was when I had my recording studio, I didn't have the right insurance and stuff like that, and it got flooded out with raw sewage and shut us down for 3 months. And that was a huge, and I had no contingency plan. And it really kind of was a super thing to overcome. The other mistakes are not understanding, the audience at the right time. It's having the right products for the right audience at the right time is what makes you successful. So sometimes you're trying to do too much or second guessing and things like that. But, they're all the bottom line with all of this stuff is you have to be, as an entrepreneur, you have to be flexible. You have to be malleable to the environment, and then you got to continue to learn. So, that's what the biggest thing I've been able to overcome is continue to reinvent myself.
Mm-hmm. And with all this wisdom, what are some of the things that you did before you started your business that would be helpful tips for some of the listeners who haven't yet taken that first step on the entrepreneur's way?
Well, I think the biggest thing is with working with third-party companies, meaning we're AT&T and Arthur Andersen and the other things, is I use those as training grounds. And so the biggest advice I could give is before you get started, get as much training as you possibly can. If you're working for somebody else and you're thinking about starting your business, go to night school, buy some courses, do some things, get the basics. I mean, like you said, there's finance, there's marketing, there's sales. All of those kind of things. The more you understand those before you get started, the better chance I think you have of success.
It's good advice. In fact, I spoke to someone earlier today who said exactly the same as that. So just moving things forward to your actual journey of being an entrepreneur, obviously with different businesses you've had, how do you think culture is important from the beginning in a business? Do you think it's something that is important, or it's something you should think about later on?
No, I think culture is incredibly important. Here's the thing. My book that I wrote is all about relationship marketing. And I think the relationship marketing really starts with getting face-to-face, getting out there and meeting people. Mm-hmm. So really understanding the pulse of the community that you're in and the pulse of the potential clients that you have is incredibly important. You really need to be a good listener and figure that stuff out. So, yeah, I think culture is incredibly important. Yeah.
You mentioned your book there. In fact, I was just fascinated by the name of it because you talk about, you've got the bacon in the name. It's all about the bacon. Can you just explain that? Because I'm intrigued by the name, and I'm sure our listeners will be as well.
Yeah, I'll give you the quick Reader's Digest story, how it all came about. I started writing a book. It was a how-to book on social media. I got 3 chapters in and figured out that the book was obsolete by the time I was done. So I decided to change it to a why-to book. And the original title was, It's Not About You, It's About Relationship Marketing in the Social Media World. I was out at a conference speaking in Los Angeles with a couple of actually old clients of mine that hired me to come out and talk social media at a conference. And Georgianne says, hey, I'm going to go on Twitter and I'm going to say, giving a speech, CHALA 2012 hashtag bacon, and I'm going to get 10 new followers by the time we're done with this 1-hour presentation. I said, what? Mm-hmm. And she was completely wrong. She had 20 new followers in an hour. And I went, whoa, what's with the bacon? So I started, I do a lot of networking and I go to a lot of breakfast meetings. So what I started doing is taking pictures of bacon. And but it was, people were sending me messages saying, dude, do you have a prepaid plan with your cardiologist? You eat so much bacon. It's like, no, I really don't. I eat oatmeal. It's OPB. It's other people's bacon. And it just exploded to the point, I don't know if you've seen, and this is relatively recently, but it was a little baby, a video of a kid who had bacon for the first time. You know, he's just laughing, eating, screaming bacon.
Yeah.
That has been posted to my wall over 50 times.
Wow.
Because people associated the word bacon with me.
Yeah.
And that's how I got the title of the book. It was actually a client of mine who said, this is the name of your book. It's not about you. It's about bacon. I went, that's brilliant. Because the whole purpose of it is to create a brand that is memorable, that people are going to connect you with. And that's really the whole purpose of it is, you know, by creating something that's fun, accessible, not divisive, it really created a brand where people think of bacon, they think of me, and it also helps them think about the kind of services and things that I do and I provide.
So it creates a certain amount of intrigue as well, I think, because I've asked you that question because I didn't really know what it was about. So that
Exactly.
So very interesting that. So knowing what you know now, Brian, is there anything that if you'd known it when you started out would have helped you to shortcut the learning curve?
Yeah, I mean, it took me a handful of years to get into heading out to conferences and meeting people, and that's really where I started to develop some higher level relationships. And what that got me into is being coached. I never really understood what coaching was, but once I started getting in working with coaches, my business really started to grow and expand. And one of my philosophies is every doctor needs a doctor, every mentor needs a mentor, and every coach needs a coach. And so that's the one thing I think that I would have, if I would have known it earlier and how it's an investment, you know, because I looked at it as like, man, I'm not going to pay somebody, you know, $6,000, $10,000, $25,000 for advice. Why would I do that when I can get it for free on the internet? Boy, was I wrong. Because that $10,000 that, you know, whatever it is that you're paying has a return on investment if you find the right person. You know, so that $10,000 can turn into 15, and that's how you amplify your income so much faster.
Yeah, I think the problem with the internet, of course, is it's full of information and misinformation, and you never know where one starts and one finishes, really, do you? So it gets a little bit confusing. So, and
more important than that is a coach gets to know you, gets to know your habits, your strengths, your weaknesses, and really helps you to maximize what it is that you're doing. You can't get that for free on the internet. Just no way.
Well, it's sort of, you're sort of fumbling around, aren't you, trying to find the information that you might stumble across. But the problem is you don't know what you don't know sometimes, so you don't even know how to look for this information, I suppose. So, Brian, how much does gut feeling influence your decisions in your business?
It influences a lot of decisions that other people help me steer in the right direction.
Right, okay, so you get the guidance as well. Yeah.
It's you know, there's a lot of gut feelings out there, but it's like, is this the right thing to do now? Because it's what we call bright, shiny object syndrome. You know, it's like if you've ever seen the movie Up, where the guy has the house and the balloons, and then they end up on this island, and there's the dog Doug, and you know, he says, my master gave me a collar so that I could speak to you, and it goes squirrel. You know, like that's what gut instinct does a lot to me, is it tries to get me off on different directions and tangents, and I tend to, you know, that's when I really need to hunker down and focus on, set a plan, get the step-by-step plan, get it done, and then move on to the next thing. So that's really important.
Yeah, I was talking to my previous guest. He was talking about Periscope, for example, as it's an app, isn't it, and a website and things. And he looked at that and didn't feel that it was something that was useful for him. How do you feel about? What's your thoughts on Periscope? I know it's going off the subject.
I love Periscope, and I do them. And
how do you use it?
Here's how I do my Periscopes, though, is I walk my dog every day at 3:00. Yeah. And I call it Marketing with Buddy Guy. And Buddy Guy he's a big black lab, 100 pounds, and he's going out and doing his social networking by checking his P-mail. Now, I only show him receiving, never sending. Yeah. And that's part of what I do with the Periscope. It's an easy thing that, you know, is 1 to 2 minutes, and is something that I can put out there. And then there's other things like Blab, too. But herein lies the question that you've got to ask is your audience on the other end? Yeah. Is the people that want to be influenced by you, that want to hear from you, if they're on the other end, then it's awesome. Mm-hmm. If they're not on the other end, then it's a waste of time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So you find it, is it working for you then, would you say? Is it?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's, you know, I cannot pinpoint a specific project that I've gotten from it yet. But I mean, there's another example of when you never know it's going to come in is I was playing guitar at church, as I mentioned before, and the lead singer's mom took a video of us, put it up on Facebook and tagged me. And the next thing you know, I get a call from a friend of mine who just landed his own church job down in Florida and said, hey, I saw the video of you and it reminded me that you do, online marketing and websites and stuff. We need to rebrand our church, build a new website, and start a new podcast. And I said, dude, you hit the right person. Me not even posting something online got me a $5,000 job. Wow. So you never know when these things are going to kick in, and that's happened numerous times.
Yeah, excellent. So life is about constant change, whether you like it or not, and the only constant is change. So, Brian, how do you keep up with change?
By continually learning, and that's it. I mean, I just go online. I actually put time aside every single day to go focus on learning something new. That's really what I'm trying to do, is find what it is that I've got to focus on and just explore it a little bit. And it's, like, for example, with Blab or Periscope, it's maybe don't start out doing them, but maybe go watch some and see how other people use it.
Yeah.
So that's learning. So the way I stay up with change is, I try to read, I try to listen to podcasts, and I listen to audiobooks. And then I try to explore what other people are doing and just keep continuing to learn. That's it.
Yeah. You mentioned books, and actually that's the next thing I'm going to ask you about. So what is your favorite book on entrepreneurialism, business, personal development, leadership, or motivation? And can you tell us why you've chosen that book?
Well, it's kind of hard just to pick one.
Well, pick more than one then if you've got more than one.
Yeah. There's a couple of different books. I mean, One of my favorite books on, what I do is a book by Michael Hyatt called Platform.
Yeah.
Where it really talks about, the basis of having a platform out there on the internet and getting people to pay attention to you.
Yeah.
Another book I really love is Go Giver, which is Bob Burg. And that one is all about just the more you give, it's about creating a value proposition where if you give people more value than what they pay you, then you're never going to have to look for a job. And the other one is one by my mentor. His name is Al Ritter. It's a pretty small book. It's called The 100-0 Principle. And the 100-0 Principle, basically what it is, it says give 100% of yourself 100% of the time, expect nothing in return, and watch what happens.
Yeah.
And, a real life example of that is if you want to get a really great testimonial on LinkedIn, which is a recommendation, not one of the, where they click on it and say, hey, I endorse you for this. It's a real recommendation. You give some really great recommendations and people will recommend you better back, but you do it with no expectations. Right. And that's a way that you can get some great testimonials that you can use in your marketing. So there's a real life example of that.
Yeah, that's a good book. I mean, I've read the Bob Burg book, and I've actually come across Michael Hyatt stuff before, but I've not read that book, and I've not heard of your other book, but I shall check those books out. They sound interesting. Everyone, when you have a busy life, listening to audiobooks is a great way to expand your knowledge in the time when you may be doing other things, such as driving or when you are at the gym. We have a special offer for you of a free audiobook of your choosing. To choose your free audiobook, go to www.freeaudiobookoffer.com. As long as you have not already signed up for it, you will qualify. So claim your free book today. Now, Brian, what I'd want to do now is I'd like to fast forward to the future and just sort of think about a few things in the future. So what one thing would you do with your business if you knew that you could not fail?
That's a really good question. Well, the one thing I would do in my business is I would try to find other people with similar passions and then turn it into more of a franchise and create a system that would be replicable with many different people. I think that would be the biggest thing, is create some kind of replicable system.
Yeah. Okay. So, and what sorts of things are you thinking of with that? Have you got any examples of other things that people have done that are similar to that?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's not too different than kind of like the duct tape coaching kind of thing, duct tape marketing. And then there's also, and I know Jeannie Levinson with guerrilla marketing. I mean, it's, the kind of thing where they have systems and people become certified in it and then can teach other people how to do it. It's kind of that thing, but it's really more targeted towards affordable for small businesses rather than, deep investments and things like that.
Right. Excellent. So along that sort of thing, what skill, if you were excellent at it, would help you the most to double your business?
Sales.
Sales.
Yeah, it's one of those things I'm learning. I'm working very, very hard at learning. It's something that there's no such thing as a natural born salesperson. Everybody has to learn how to do it.
Yeah.
And, it's really finding the right prospect with the right need who has the ability to pay for what you have. Mm-hmm. That is going to make a business really, soar. And that's it. So I'm constantly working on becoming a better salesperson, not the shady kind, the car salesman, not that kind of thing, but somebody who really understands how to create a need and connect people up with that need.
Mm, right. I see. I mean, there is obviously a link between sales and marketing, isn't there, to some extent? If you're marketing a product, it's very much like selling the product. So there's definitely a crossover of the two things. But I think when you talk about selling, are you talking about selling to somebody face-to-face or on the phone or in your marketing?
All of the above. Well, see, the way I look at marketing is what draws people in. Yeah. And it also can help you qualify. But the actual sales process itself is when you're dealing one-on-one with somebody and you have to deal with, objections and make sure that the value for them is going to have some kind of return on investment so that your value proposition is solid. And one of my value propositions are if I can't make somebody 3 times what they spend, then I won't do a project with them because they've got to pay for me. Yep. They've got to pay for their time because you can't just hire somebody to all of a sudden make you money. You have to be involved in it one way, shape, or form. And then and some people think they can, and it might work for a while, but it doesn't last forever. And then the third one is you got to make a profit. Mm-hmm. So my value proposition is, for every $1 you spend, you've got to make 3. Yeah. And, that's the same thing in advertising. If you spend $1, you got to make 2. Yeah. It all boils down to is this the right fit for that person, and can they actually succeed with this? Mm-hmm. That's it. So that's kind of where the sales thing is.
Okay, excellent. So once you've acquired this knowledge, in 5 years from now, if a well-known business publication was publishing an article on your business after talking to your customers and suppliers, what would you like it to say?
What I'd really like it to say is that Brian is a social advocate that really understands how to prevent you from blowing too much money and actually making more money in a system that is straightforward, easy to understand, easy to implement, and really lives up to its promises.
Wow, excellent. Okay, we're now at the part of the show where you share your 3 golden nuggets. So, Brian, what's your favourite quote and how have you applied it in your business life?
There's so many great quotes out there, but my all-time favorite quote comes from the movie This Is Spinal Tap. I don't know if you've ever seen it.
Yes, I have.
But the quote goes like this: "It's a fine line between clever and stupid." And I've applied that to my businesses. I try to give everything I do some kind of litmus test. Is this truly clever or is it stupid? And we can do that. We can all throw money at problems and eventually figure out we just blew a bunch of money. Mm-hmm. So that's the one that I think is my favorite. And there's so many great quotes and from Tom Edison and I didn't fail 1,000 times to succeed once. I learned 1,000 times to succeed once,
Yeah,
so there's all those kinds of things.
Yeah. Okay, so do you have any favorite online resources you'd like to share that would be useful to our listeners?
Absolutely. Well, first and foremost, I'd love people to listen to my podcast, which is Bacon Podcast. And the reason I love doing the podcast is because I get to interview a lot of internet marketing millionaires and basically pick their brains. And that's why I think it's going to be a great resource for your audience. Yours is a wonderful podcast because it really gets to the meat of being an entrepreneur. Mm-hmm. What I try to do is get to, some specifics, some marketing techniques that are very, to the point, blogging, podcasting, email marketing, autoresponders, and there's some mindset stuff in there too, about using coaching and doing masterminds and things of that nature. But I think that's going to be a really good asset for your audience. Yep,
sounds good. So what's your best advice you'd give to other entrepreneurs if you could think of anything out of everything you've ever thought of?
Yeah, first, the advice that I try to tell all entrepreneurs is you're not all that. You always need help. And to continue to learn as much as you possibly can. If you stop learning, you stop earning. Mm-hmm. You need to constantly reinvent yourself in this ever-changing world, because if I kept doing business card CDs or running a recording studio with a $250,000 worth of gear and 5 employees. If I still had that today, I'd be bankrupt, because you can now buy an app on the iPhone for $10 or $20 that does more than I could do then. So you have to continually learn, grow, adapt, reinvent yourself, and make sure that you get help along the way. Get a mentor, get a coach, join a mastermind, do something where other entrepreneurs, and they don't even have to be in the same field as you. Yeah. I'm in a mastermind with somebody who runs a local small business, an insurance agent, jewelry store, because business is business. You all learn from different people's problems and different people's situations. So get out there, get some help, and make yourself, show your face every once in a while. It's important.
Yeah, it's some great advice, that, because in business it's very easy to become very sort of blinkered in the way or tunnel visioned in the way you see things, doesn't it? And you can end up just seeing things in your industry, and there could be some great idea in someone else's industry that you could take into yours and revolutionise things and do things differently, couldn't you? So it's always good to share perspectives to get new ideas and grow your business.
Absolutely.
Everyone, if you didn't manage to get a note of Brian's favourite resource or his favourite book, you can find the links on Brian's show notes page. Just go to theentrepreneurway.com and search for Brian or Brian Basilico in the search box. Brian, is there anything else you'd like to add about your business that you've not said up to now?
Not necessarily. I would just like, people to take the opportunity to get to know me better. And you can find me at like I said, Bacon Podcast or b2b-im.com. My main business is called B2B Interactive Marketing. So it's b2b-im.com. And on there, you'll find my blogs. On the podcast, you'll find the podcast. And, I'd love if people would connect up on any kind of social media, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, whatever your method of choice is, even Pinterest. So wherever you want to connect up, I would love to connect with you and your audience.
Okay, thanks for that, Brian. It's been an absolute honour having you on here, Brian. You have provided some real useful insight into the entrepreneur way. You've inspired us all, and you have certainly given us a lot to think about. So thank you very much for coming on here.
Oh, man, thanks for the opportunity. I really appreciate it.
You are welcome.
Thank you for listening to The Entrepreneur Way. Subscribe to our podcast and follow us on Twitter at Neil D. Ball.